They said he could smell smoke before anyone else. But how did he always arrive before the fire even began? It was spring in Medford, New York. A patchwork of suburban streets and overgrown woods, the air restless with warnings. A burn ban in effect, the forests dry as bone. You could smell possibility. For some, it was caution. For others, maybe invitation. The Medford Fire Department ran on coffee jars and community raffle tickets. It was the sort of place where rivalry played out and whose chilly fundraiser could draw a bigger crowd. Until the fires started happening, alarmingly close and unsettlingly frequent. Jonathan Keelace was young, just 20, with dark hair, broad shoulders, and that peculiar way firefighters have of noticing the world. The snap of twigs, the shift of the wind. He wore his crew shirt everywhere, traded stories by the trucks, and kept a battered red duffel bag in the passenger seat of his faded sedan. Neighbors said he was polite. Fellow volunteers called him the Shadow, for slipping onto scenes almost like magic. On paper, he was a kid who wanted to help, someone who worked through a number of personal challenges, as his defense lawyer would later explain. But it was how he always got there that made people talk. One night, a Chevrolet parked in the shadows near 12 Pines Park went up in flames. 3 minutes before the fire was called in, Jonathan was already circling, headlights off. 4 witnesses said they saw him kicking something. Cotton balls, they thought, which, in the flash of streetlight, seemed to catch fire as if from nowhere. Fires didn't just happen. They were born, pieced together. The wooded lots behind Mount Vernon Avenue had started to look cursed. A scorched patchwork of memories and melted plastic, crisped pine needles, the air shimmering with smoke. The Medford crew responded each time, hoses unfurling, boots biting into the undergrowth. More often than not, Jonathan was already there, grabbing gear, shouting orders, adrenaline dancing. The pattern was impossible to ignore. He wasn't just first in, last out. He was already there. Other firefighters had suspicions, but after each fire the investigation ran cold. No fingerprints, no motive. The scenes always felt off. Too neat, as if someone was waiting, rehearsed. Everything changed with the last blaze. The car was ruined, a family displaced, the air thick with rumors. This time, as dusk fell and the fire department arrived at the park, a bystander spoke up.
I saw him. He was there before any flames, tossing something into the brush.
By morning, Suffolk County Police issued an arrest. Jonathan's world, once contained to service, heroics, and possible admiration, turned inside out. And suddenly, everyone had a story about how he beat the flames. Even before the fires had begun, the Medford fire incident was not the first, nor the last. As details unfurled, the community learned just how many fires had seemed to attract Jonathan, the Shadow, Keelace, and just how often he arrived before the call was made. On Wednesday morning, firefighters scrambled yet again to put out hotspots at 12 Pines Park. Ashes swirling, the ground streaked with black. Witnesses described seeing Jonathan earlier that day, always present before the fire trucks. 4 separate people would later testify. At 3:23 p.m., Jonathan kicked and threw cotton balls lit on fire beneath a Chevrolet sedan parked off Mount Vernon Avenue. 15 minutes later, he was seen behind a stretch of residential homes, performing the same act. It wasn't subtle. His behavior was out of place, urgent, compulsive. The cotton balls, soaked in a mysterious solution, caught easily. Little white flare-ups that swept across dry leaves in the wind. That year, New York was suffering from an extended dry spell, with a statewide burn ban announced only hours before, dangerously low humidity, and vegetation tinder dry. Even the National Weather Service blared red flag warnings for half the state. Emergency dispatcher logs revealed a telling pattern. Jonathan was on scene so frequently, always first, that his presence was recorded multiple times before any official call for help. Some said he was just passionate, restless, a firefighter devoted to service despite his age. Others whispered, was this the sign of something else? In court, video footage linked him directly to the blaze. Suffolk County Police recognized his vehicle and stopped him, bringing him in for questioning before details had been publicly released. Jonathan was arraigned on multiple counts: felony arson, reckless endangerment, and promptly suspended by the Medford Fire Department. His attorney spoke carefully outside.
Jonathan has a history of being a peaceful, good-natured, and polite young man who has, in the past, successfully worked through a number of personal challenges.
Yet court records told a different story. In a written statement, Jonathan admitted to setting cotton balls on fire and kicking them beneath the parked car. What he did not explain was why. The fire scorched the vehicle. It's the only car the owner used for work, and left a family out thousands for repairs. The Medford Fire Department chairman stated that background checks turned up nothing to indicate an inclination toward arson, and that Jonathan would be terminated if convicted. The incident is actively being investigated by the Suffolk County PD Arson Squad, the statement read, with an order of protection requested by the car's owner. Why would someone drawn to service, especially in a tight-knit community, risk everything by sparking the very chaos he was pledged to control? Was it a desperate bid to belong, or something deeper? Pause and reflect for a moment. In firefighter psychology literature, there's a term, hero syndrome. Sometimes being first on the scene is not just a badge of honor. It's a compulsion, the need to be seen as a savior. Nationwide, volunteer firefighters are responsible for a small but incredibly destructive number of arson cases each year. Often, families and departments have no prior warning. Background checks mean little when the compulsion develops after admission. The fires that week were not isolated. Statewide, officials tracked clusters of suspicious fire calls, always in places Jonathan frequented: parks, brush, abandoned lots. The DA's statements brought media scrutiny, neighbors locking sheds, parents warning kids against the woods. Journalists pressed, looking for motive, scouring Jonathan's social media and search history. He'd liked posts about fire science, volunteered for extra shifts, sent late-night texts asking, "Is there anything happening tonight?" No one knew the full story. Red herrings abounded. Meanwhile, Suffolk County Police debated whether bail was possible. Because of recent bail reform in New York, even intentionally setting fires in dangerous conditions was not bail eligible, frustrating prosecutors. Jonathan was placed under supervised release with a GPS tracker, awaiting his next hearing. The fires stopped. The community was left grasping, wondering what could drive a beloved volunteer to become, abruptly, a suspect, carrying not just the burden of criminality, but of broken trust. The day of reckoning arrived, and it was fraught. Suffolk County Courthouse parking lot overflowed with news vans, Medford residents, and more than a few fellow firefighters, stiff with disbelief. Jonathan Quiles faced the judge, the same courthouse that processed heroes and criminals, sometimes within hours of each other. Inside, the district attorney laid out the evidence. Surveillance video from 12 Pines Park, time-stamped 3:23 p.m., showed Jonathan lighting cotton balls and kicking them beneath a parked Chevrolet, smoke billowing as the fire caught under the dry leaves. 4 witnesses, independent and grim, echoed each other. Jonathan was present before the fire, seen with fire starter in hand. Medford Fire Department logs painted an unmistakable pattern. Keelay's was, again and again, first on scene. Jonathan's defense painted a portrait of a troubled but non-violent young man, an aspiring EMT who had psychological challenges but never posed a threat before. He pleaded not guilty to all charges. Still, the written confession that he'd sparked the blaze with cotton balls hung in the air, impossible to reconcile with the stories neighbors once told of his gentleness and grit. The red flag warnings, statewide burn bans, and record drought made the fires all the more catastrophic. The car Jonathan burned was the owner's only way to work. Its loss spiraled into hardship. The brush fires left parts of 12 Pines Park scarred. Nature's quiet defeated for now. Jonathan Quiles remains suspended, officially terminated only if convicted. As the investigation into related fires continues, Medford's trust in volunteer first responders is shaken. The fire department now faces pressure to reform background checks, tighten recruitment, and implement ongoing psychological evaluations. The local community wrestles with hard questions about heroism, desperation, and the thin line separating service from self-destruction. Should society respond with more compassion or more vigilance? Can the urge to help ever justify reckless acts? What does justice look like when the shadow is one of our own?
Don't forget to subscribe to Real Mystery Reports for more strange, dark, and profoundly human stories. New true mysteries every day.